So then we come to renewables, and I'm a proponent of renewables, but I'm not an outrageous proponent of renewables, as you sometimes might think people are who say it can all be done with renewables. It's just a nice little picture which shows the, attributed to Lomberg, which shows in a nice graphic the annual world consumption and how that little cube would divide into the oil cube and how that would divide into the gas and uranium and the coal. So it gives a good picture. And then it gives the picture of how it divides into the annual renewable energy we have on planet Earth. And of course the message there is, my goodness, this is renewable annually. What have we got? That's what we must be unleashing. We must be capturing that, harnessing that, processing that, delivering that energy. At the moment, through photosynthesis plants, we use a little bit of it, and through very small, hydro plant and so on in the world, we use another little bit of it. And so you can clearly see taking that cube at the top and dividing it into that. Wow, hugely abundant. Bring, however, your attention to this graphic, where we see the challenge before us, where the little disk on the top is the current world deployment of renewable sources. And what we have to do is somehow drive that disk down, displacing all these other sources of energy, particularly the fossil ones, as they exhaust. And that means we have to change our entire way of thinking, our entire infrastructures, be it transport, be it the built environment, be it our manufacturing, our industry. All of it has to change as we start driving this, the way we deliver, the way we utilize. Just thinking of electricity alone, the bullet points here, we can't just put renewable energy on our transmission networks and at the distribution level. We can't just do that because it gives rise to all sorts of network instabilities that need control, active network control. Because these sources of energy are not only distributed, are not only low power density in many cases, but they're also stochastic. They vary randomly. And that would have to be taken into account as they're dispatched, coordinated, and the balance made with the demand side, which is quite a simple balance at the moment, but becomes incredibly complex as we start to deploy distributed stochastic sources. It can be done, of course it can be done, but it's going to take some time to do it. We're going to have to increase the transmission network capacity, we're going to have active distribution network management and control, we're going to have energy storage and plant on standby, someone's going to pay for that in order to enable these greater deployments of strategic renewables. And also, as I'm just about to show you, the practical resource isn't that big. I'm going to go back to David Mackay's book, where he takes the demand side. And then he runs, and you can look at his book at yourself, he runs some scenarios for what the conceivable production of renewable energy might be in the UK. And you can agree or disagree with any assumptions made. And the maximum conceivable tends to be a good news story. It tends to say that it's possible, by that kind of mix, taking our existing wind power provision, adding in some near offshore capacity, extending out to deep water, far offshore, bringing in tidal stream power extraction, setting up big PV arrays and land a PV farm, deploying growing energy crops, so giving over some of our arable land for production of energy crops. So through all these mechanisms, as listed there, you begin to see, well, yeah, it's conceivable in the fullness of time we could have an infrastructure that matched demand with renewable supply. However, there's some of the assumptions that had to be made in order to get here. Now, we would have to have something like 75% of our arable land given over for energy crops. we would have to deploy something like 44,000 3-megawatt turbines in deep offshore, with all the infrastructural problems that might give rise to. 10% of our land, again, competing with other uses. That is possible if we are prepared to industrialize the landscape on an unimaginable scale, so that now renewable energy becomes synonymous with an industrialized Britain in its landscape. So that is a trade-off. And therefore, it's not true to say renewables are clean and benign. Renewables have a huge consequence if we rely on them alone. And I'm not implying I'm for or against that. It's just a statement of fact. If we run some numbers where we constrain ourselves by planning considerations, development control considerations, public acceptance considerations, it's quite likely that and technological considerations, it's quite likely that the renewable resource we have is much smaller than that by a long way. So to get from here to there, if it takes 50 years or 100 years, we're going to have to nurture our other technologies. Just another example why renewables isn't round the corner. Here's marine power. And everyone says, well, we'll just go off and we'll extract energy from these big tidal streams around the UK. And these are the sorts of devices that are being pursued at the moment, planned, researched. But very early days, these are all just prototypes going in. And of course, prototypes are just that. They're prototypes. They will never be perfect. They are used to learn. And these are all the challenges. How can we get the capital cost down? There are ways of doing that. What impact will corrosion and abrasion have on the performance of the rotors and the blades, and biofouling? How often will they need maintained? What's the revenue loss when you put them in such a hostile environment? What about safety issues? How do you get them maintained out there? And Gale 9 and so on. Then we've got to take the power off at low rotational speeds. They're not high speed like the wind turbine environment. They're low rotational speeds. We've got to get that power off. We've got to gear it. We've got to transmit that to grid access. So we've got to strengthen the grid. Subsea grids have to be built. We have to somehow overcome problems of land use and land access, because we've got landowners, so that's all got to be taken into account. Community ownership, perhaps at landfall. Operating different sites in a phased manner so we can use tidal as a base load provision, and other new environmental impacts that people will become concerned about. So we're a long way away from having deployable commercial systems.